Hello, everyone. This is the Humor in Chaos podcast. I am Sarah Hauer Nelson, certified resilience life coach, certified art therapy practitioner. And today we are joined by Alice Loescher. Is it Loescher?
Loescher.
Loescher. Alice Loescher. So Alice Loescher is here to share her story with us. Alice is co-owner of Squared Away Home Improvements, co-owned with her husband, a reliable handyman service in the Treasure Valley here in Idaho, a wife and a mother of two. Alice's professional history includes office administrator and interior designer for an interior store and a project coordinator for a custom home builder. Today, along with being a stay-at-home mother, Alice is also working from home on creating their Home Partners program, a subscription-based home maintenance service for homeowners in the Treasure Valley. Alice's goal is to share how she went from feeling unworthy of love to having a fulfilling life married to a man who loves her unconditionally, a growing family, and a growing business. Lots going on. And Alice's fun fact, which I think a lot of women can relate to. Half the time, I don't know what I am doing, and I feel like I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off, but I keep going because someone has to do it.
Yep.
So how about we start there? How's it going with the running around?
It's going really good. Just, one day at a time.
One day at a time, yeah. So let's start off with your history. Where do you come from?
So I was born and raised in Northwest Washington in Whatcom, Skagit County area. Um, I spent my whole life there. I lived in Reno, Nevada for a little bit in high school, and I also lived in California for a little bit after high school when I was a nanny, and then went back home. Lived there until we moved to Idaho about 2.5 years ago.
Yeah, so you've been multi-state. I have as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the story that you want to share is one of overcoming
Yes.
a not so great relationship that you had, not with your husband. This was
Yes.
somebody before you knew him,
Yes.
right?
Correct. My
Okay.
previous relationship, I was with the man for 3.5 years before I left, and literally almost to the day, 2 weeks after I left that relationship, I met my husband.
Quick turnaround.
Yeah. Yes.
So, let's talk about that previous not so great relationship so that, people who, um, how do I want to ask this? So people that are in a situation where they're kind of questioning, is this a healthy relationship or not? Let's start at the beginning. Where did you meet him?
So that's kind of like the first red flag. Um, so I actually met him on New Year's Eve at a bar, or at a club, you might call it, and took him home. Never thought I would see him again. And when I dropped him off back at his house, he was like, "Can I take you to dinner?" And I was like, "Sure, sure." And he's like, "You seem like wonderful. I would love to get to know you more." And I was like, "All right, like, what do I got to lose? Like a free meal? Like, why not?" Um, so we started casually dating and then exclusively dating, and things, honeymoon phase were really great.
Mhm.
And after 8 months, I went to spend the weekend at his house and he was packing up his stuff. And previously, we had discussed him moving in with me so that, he could save up and buy us a house. Hindsight, very quick to talk about, not the best choice. However, in the moment, that those are things we discussed. So I showed up at his house and he was packing and he was like, "I'm going to save and I'm going to buy us a house." And I was like, oh, like I in that moment was so excited because I thought, oh, he wants to take our relationship to the next level. He's moving in with me because I had my own place and he was living with a roommate. So I was like, this is great. We're getting more serious. I was so excited. And that's really where things started to turn. Um, Shortly after he moved in with me, all intimacy stopped, which was weird. And I didn't notice it at first. And then he quit paying for everything. Um, we hadn't really discussed how things would be split up, but he lived with me for just over a year, between him moving in and him purchasing the house. And he would pay for groceries on occasion, and he paid for his cell phone, but everything else I paid for. And didn't really, at the time, I was like, it's okay, you're saving to buy us a house.
Mhm.
So I was like, this is okay. Um, Hindsight, again, hindsight's 2020, right?
Yep.
So that's how we met. That's how things started. Our relationship really, like I said, after he moved in with me, kind of started to take a turn. I started seeing more of his anger. Um, Seeing somebody spending like half a week with them is different than being with them 24/7. And I got to experience that the drinking wasn't just a cat like weekend fun party thing. He was a raging alcoholic. And, it just, things spiraled. So,
And too many women find themselves in that situation. I mean, just
yeah. And, I believed, like so many women believe, that if I loved him enough and that if I did enough, that he would stop, that he would be happy enough, that his life would be fulfilled enough, that he wouldn't need alcohol. And I don't want to say I know, but I will say I know a lot of women feel that way. They think he will change because he will love me so much. But as someone who, my father is an alcoholic, he is 3 years sober, and I am so proud of him. Um, but my father has struggled with alcoholism for years, and he had to make the choice to be sober for himself, not for anybody else. Um,
right.
my older brother is an alcoholic still, um, who and he has, tried to be sober, but it's one of those things where they have to want it in their heart. You can't, when you're in an addiction, you can't do it for anyone but yourself.
Yes.
And that's something that a lot of people have a hard time wrapping their mind around. And I had a hard time um, wrapping my mind around it for many years. Um, but it is something that I've learned, that for addicts to be sober, it has to be in their heart. They won't do it, this sounds wild, but they won't do it for their kids. They won't do it for um, the love of their life. They won't do it for their family. They won't do it for anybody. They have to do it because it's what they want.
Right.
And I learned that.
The hard way.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And, we learn these things cognitively. I mean, who hasn't heard that cognitively?
Yeah.
But getting that to actually come into here, as you pointed out, you've got alcoholism in your family dynamic from childhood. So, and you've also pointed out that hindsight is 2020. And this is where a lot of us struggle. Like I did too. When I look back at the struggles in my marriage, and I look not so much at my family history, because not that it was all, roses and flower petals. I mean, there were definitely issues there. But when I look back at my ex-husband's family dynamic, there were definitely red flags that I saw that I should have, but I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't catch on. And We all do that where we unintentionally take on what feels comfortable, even if what feels comfortable isn't healthy.
Mm-hmm. I agree
So
with you 100%.
yeah, so once you started recognizing that and you left, and we'll talk about how it was when you left. Once you realize that and you have left, just to talk about just you for a moment, how did you do with yourself in forgiving yourself for missing what was there? What?
Um, oh, that's a good question. So it it took a lot. Um, and there's still things like to this day that I'm working on. And I hope that, I mean, it's been over 5 years. And so hopefully in another 5 years I'll be totally totally good. But it was a lot of reminding myself that I did my best in what I thought I needed to do and not holding myself to an unrealistic standard. Because I knew for years that I should leave, but there were certain things like he had a daughter, and I didn't like, I was terrified to lose her. I didn't. She's still a part of my life to this day. I love her to death, but there were things that I felt like I had to stay for. Um, and so, you know, forgiving forgiving myself and realizing that I didn't have to stay for those things. Um, and that um, giving myself the grace that I would get tell my friend to give, like, a friend leaving that kind of a situation, you would tell them, don't blame yourself. Like, you did what you thought was right in the moment, and you did what you thought was right, and you stayed because you felt you needed to.
Mhm.
You left, so proud of you. Let's rebuild, and let's just keep looking forward. Don't look back, and give yourself grace. Because that's one thing I tell my friends, no matter what the situation is, I always tell them, give yourself grace. And reminding myself of that a lot in the weeks and months and years that followed.
Yes, yes, exactly. And you kept yourself from judging yourself harshly, which is key. You
Yeah,
only you only knew what you knew. You didn't know what you didn't know.
exactly.
Yes, perfect. Uh, so talk to me about actually leaving, because as also statistics show, the leaving is when people become more abusive.
Yeah. So throughout our relationship, he was never, until literally right before I left, he had never put hands on me. He was always, he would talk down to me. I was never, my food always needed a tweaking, which some people are just like that. I was never skinny enough. My hair wasn't the right color. I'm a natural brunette. I went platinum because he liked blondes. I had never been, I mean, I always kind of wanted to be a blonde because I wanted, I was raised in the 90s. We were pushed to be blondes.
Yes.
So, I always wanted to be a blonde. But so I did. I was a blonde. I went platinum. And I watched what I ate. I was never bigger than a size 6. But I was never skinny enough. I never looked good enough. Um, he would never go with me to family things because my family was crazy. I'm not the one that came. His mom is wonderful. I'm not the one that came from a crazy family, though. I will say my family was not as crazy. Um, my family was never good enough for him. There was always something wrong with me to him, like, I don't know how to explain it. But he made me feel like I was losing my mind. Like, I felt like I was going insane. And his alcoholism had gotten really bad. And the weekend that I left, or the weekend before I left, because I left on a Tuesday, the Saturday before, we had to go to the grocery store. We had to go into town to go to the store. And he was drunk, and it was like 11 a.m. and he was picking a fight. And we got in my car to go to town. And he's like, you should just leave me home, just like yelling and screaming. And he was so mad. Um, and we went to the store, and it was awful. And he, drank all day. The next day, he started drinking early, and he was going to go do something that I had previously set a boundary and said, you cannot do this. If you're going to do this, you have to give me notice, because I have horrific anxiety and I had to be able to get my head in the right space. And he did it anyways. He was going to do it anyways. So here I am. I already have, like, we've had a rough weekend. He has been yelling. He has been mean. He would say like the meanest stuff. Um, and he was being so mean to me. And I was just like hysterically crying, like blocking the doorway. And I was like, please, please just do not do this for me. If you love me at all, you will not do this. And I thought that he would love me enough after 4.5 years,
Mhm.
3.5 years, 4.5, 3.5 years to not do it. Um, he shoved me to the ground. That's the first time he had ever put hands on me. He shoved me to the ground, stood over me, looked down at me, yelling at me, stepped over me, and went and did exactly what I had asked him not to do, begged him not to do. And I was hysterical. I put my dog on a leash, and then I went and I walked her for like 3 hours. And I took my phone and I called my mom, and I was hysterical. And I was like, Mom, I have to leave. I can't stay anymore. I told her what had happened. And I said, he has me convinced that I'm going insane, like that there is something wrong with me. Um, and my mom said, she's like, I'll talk to Justin. Oh, shoot, can you edit that part out? My mom said, it's my stepdad, it's fine. Um, my mom said, I will talk to him and we will, like, just tell us a day. And I said, by Thursday. And my mom said, okay. And then I had called my boss, because I was going to need a day off work, and she didn't answer. But like, I I was just a wreck. And I just walked for like 2 hours, and I was so broken. And I can't I can't even explain the feeling. And by the time I decided to go back to the house, because like I said, I'd just been walking the same loop for 2 or 3 hours, I went back to the house. He was fine. He was calm. And he was like, are you okay? And I was like, I'm just exhausted. It's been a weekend. And, he tried to be lovey. Like, I just sat on the other end of the couch, and I was like, can I just have space? And I sat there, and I remember my boss called me back shortly after I got in the house, and I texted her. I said, I can't talk right now. He is in the room. Can either you or your husband, who is my other boss, be at the shop early tomorrow so we can talk? And she said, yes, my husband will be there. And I go in early the next morning and I tell my boss everything that happened. And they knew um, that the relationship wasn't the best, because we were really close. And so they knew that he wasn't the best guy, but they also knew that I was obviously an adult. So I told my boss what was going on, and I said, I have to have a day off this week. I have to move. Like, I have to leave. And I am forever grateful for them, because they said, when, like, what day? And I said, by Thursday. They said, what about tomorrow? And I was like, I could ask my mom. And they said, we will have a box truck. We had a spare box truck at work. They said, we will have a box truck, and we will have 2 guys from our crew at your house at 8 a.m. to pack your stuff and get you out. Is that a good time? And I said, yes. And they literally on the clock, they paid two guys from our crew, two guys that I felt comfortable with coming to my house, like the house and moving. They paid two guys their regular time to come and spend a couple hours loading all of my stuff into a box truck to get it out so that I could get out quickly and safely while he was at work. And I called my mom and I said, Mom, this is what work is doing. I'm going to be there tomorrow. And my mom said, okay, like any good mom would.
Yep.
And so that night I went home and I was still just, I was done and I was exhausted. And I remember again sitting at the opposite end of the couch. And normally I'm pretty chatty and I didn't talk to him because I was done. And I remember him looking over at me and being like, are you okay? And I just looked over at him and I said, yeah. I said, I'm exhausted. The weekend was hard and I just need some space. And, he wanted me to go and snuggle with him at the end of, like, on his side of the couch. And I was like, nah, I was like, I'm okay over here. Like, I'm just tired. And he accepted that. At that point, I'm sure he knew that he messed up because that wasn't the norm. Normally, we would fight, stuff would hit the fan. After work on Monday, things would be pretty well smoothed over, if not fully smoothed over. And so the next morning was like so nerve-wracking for me. He got up, he went to work, and he had never once turned around to come back to the house after leaving the house to go to work. But in my mind, I was freaking out because I'm like, I have to start packing. Like, what if today is the only day ever that he comes home and I'm packing my stuff? Like the mental, I'm trying to think of a way to say it without using profanity. The mind fuck that it was to have to push past that and be like, he is like, psych myself out that he never comes home. The job site that he is working at is an hour away. He is not going to turn around and come home. He did not, his lunch was packed. He took his lunch. He took everything. Like, there's no reason for him to come home. He never comes home. So I gave myself half an hour because I knew if he was going to come home for any reason, it would be within like half an hour. So after half an hour, I got up, I took a shower, and then like just mayhem, packing everything, all of my clothes, also doing laundry, his laundry, and that'll come into play later. Just going through the house, like room by room, packing up all of my things in suitcases and in boxes that I had in my car. And that was also a struggle, having boxes in my car. Did he ever look in the back of my car? No. Was I terrified that he was going to see the moving boxes in the back of my car? 110%. Terrified. And then I would have to explain to him the boxes. And I had an excuse that they were for work, but like also how do I explain the moving boxes? So I pack everything. The guys get there with the box truck. I have almost all of my stuff packed up. At this point, I'm like throwing in certain things that like I remember they got there and I had like a suitcase open in the kitchen that I was putting only like the things that I absolutely wanted to keep, like special cups that like I got, like mugs and things I'd gotten as gifts. And they loaded up my dresser, loaded up my bed, they loaded up my pit bike, they loaded up, bless their hearts, they climbed up into the loft in the shop and got the stuff up there that was mine. One of my girlfriends came and got like the smaller stuff that I was taking with me to my mom's. And I would say by about noon, everything was packed and out of the house. I loaded up my car. I'd run to town, do a couple of like run an errand, drop stuff off at my mom's, go back to the house. And my friend hung out with me until about 45 minutes before he was due to be home from work. And she went and posted up at the gas station down on the corner, in case anything were to go south. Because this man had a temper And granted, he had only put hands on me like 2 days before, shoving me to the ground, but you never know. And
Right.
one thing about um not just, I mean, people who are alcoholics, but like anyone in domestic violence, things escalate quickly.
Yes, they do.
So it can go from just being verbal, emotional, and mental, which is what I dealt with for the first 3.5 years, to physical very fast. And the fact that he had finally gotten physical with me, you never like, you don't know where it's going to go after that. And that's one of the reasons I had to leave, because I know how it escalates. I know the statistics. So anyways, she was waiting down the street at a gas station. And our agreement was, as soon as he pulls into the driveway, I will text her. She will wait 5 minutes. If I do not call her to say I'm headed to the gas station within 5 minutes, she is to hightail it to our house.
Mm.
And he got home late, and I was like kind of freaking out. And I was like, why is he not home? Like, he's late. Um, and he pulled in, and he was like, what's going on, Alice? And I was like, I said I'm done. I said my keys are on the counter. My garage door opener for my spot in the shop, it's on the counter. All my stuff is out. All the bills are paid through the end of the month because I paid everything other than the mortgage. Um, I said all the bills are paid through the end of the month. You have until the end of the month to put everything in your name, including like cable and internet. I like it will be shut off at the end of the month. And the house, house is clean, everything's done. His laundry was folded and put away, because I didn't want to leave any room for negativity, knowing the kind of person he was. So
So you're
I said,
doing his laundry and cleaning his house was really a defense mechanism or
yes,
security.
yeah, because I knew that if I didn't, he would say she left and she left the house a mess. She left and she did this. Like, so the house was clean, vacuum, sweep, mop. Dishwasher was running when I left. All of his laundry was folded and put away. Um, the bathroom was clean. Like everything, his dog had been played with and exercised for the day. Like everything was done because I did not want him to be able to go to anyone and say, she left the house a mess. She tore up the house. There was stuff all over the place. No, I wanted nothing for him to be able to say negative about me leaving. And so, he got really upset. He's like, I went to the store and bought everything to make your favorite dinner. That was him, the love bombing,
Yep.
you know. He's like, I can't believe you do this. I spent all this money to make this meal for you as my way of saying sorry. And now, like, what am I supposed to do? Where are you going? And I said, I'm gonna go sleep on my mom's couch until I can, find a place of my own. And that should tell you enough, because I hadn't lived with my mom since I moved out at the age of 17. So, it had been a decade. And I was like, I'm gonna I'm gonna go sleep on my mom's couch. And he was like, well, what's his name? And I was like, there's nobody. Literally, there's nobody. I'm just done here. And, he got really mad and he stormed in the house, slammed the door. I texted my friend. I went and I met her, sobbing hysterically because I feel like I wasted my life. And he calls me like pretty quick, and he's like, you can come back, and forget this ever happened, and we'll work on things. But you need to come back, like right now. And I remember like telling him, I'm not coming back. This is done. I can't do this anymore. And you know, he was upset, and more accusations about me cheating on him, which I never did, despite the fact that he refused intimacy with me for years. I always, stayed faithful to him. And I was done.
Mhm.
And it was one of the hardest things I have ever done in my life, if not the hardest thing I've ever done next to childbirth. Um, but it was the like it was the best thing I could have ever done for myself, because 2 weeks later, I met my husband. I never would have met him had I stayed.
Right. It's a very brave act to get up and go from situations like that. It's so hard to do. It's so hard to do. I mean, I know looking back on my previous marriage, I should have left years and years previous. And I'm not even the one who left. He did. He finally left, but I should have left years before. And yeah, I completely agree with you on the physical because he didn't lay a hand on me until the last few months. And then after he laid a hand on me the second time, we were married for over 30 years. And for 3 decades didn't lay a hand on me. And then the last 6 months twice. And after the second time, then he left. And I knew that intellectually, just as you said, once it reaches a certain point, once it crosses a line, it just keeps building and building and building.
Yeah, and I mean, we had danced that line there one time specific, and I won't go into details, but there was one time when he was completely trashed that he was really pushing a boundary, and I got in his face and I went toe to toe with him, and we got into an argument, and I was not backing down. And I remember seeing him like squeeze his fists and like push his chest out at his size, and he was like challenging me, and I was like, I'm not backing down. Like you need to get out of this room, get out, or the police will be called. Like I'm not backing down here, and standing my ground, and like seeing the rage in his eyes, it like it's a look that you don't see. Like people get mad, but like it's different.
It is
And
different.
like I said, like the clenching, his hands going white and puffing his chest and just challenging. And I was like, I'm not like I was ready for a hit. Like I was ready for him to like sock me aside the face. And
Mhm.
I'm sure he didn't do it because of who was in the room. Um, but I was fully ready for it at like in that moment. And there was one or two other times where I thought it might get to that point, but that's the time that like really sticks out in my head. And that was probably I left in May. So it was probably 6 months before then, 6 or 8 months before then is when the time where I was like, okay, I'm ready for it. Like, let's all prepared because not that I didn't want him to by any means, but he was really restraining himself from hitting me. It was very obvious. Um, and then, it made the progression, and I knew um, that it would have spiraled from there.
Yeah.
Because once you do it once, you'll do it again, and it
Yep.
gets worse every time, and that's how women end up dead.
Yep.
And I should and men. It's not just women
It's not
and
just
men, but that is in domestic violence. It starts with something like a shove, and then it progresses, sometimes slowly, sometimes rapidly. And that
yes.
was not a game I was willing to play.
Yes. Very brave. Very, very brave. And then 2 weeks after you were out of there, your world changed.
I met my amazing husband, Zach. We actually met on Bumble. Shout out Bumble. And it's wild because I remember sitting at my mom's kitchen table and I was like, Mom, is it too soon for me to get on like a dating site? Because like to me, the relationship had been dead for years. Yeah, like there was no intimacy, there was nothing. Like I got kissed twice a day. I got kissed in the morning before he went to work, and I got kissed at night before he went to bed. And that was it. Because anything more than that, and I was needy. Um, and I would get the why I already kissed you today. Why do you need another one? That was just another layer. of the
Breadcrumbs.
crazy.
Just got breadcrumbs. That's it.
Yeah. And, there was, like I said earlier, no intimacy. We didn't have sex for at least 3 years. And yeah, it was wild. And well, it was very lackluster. I shouldn't say it was wild. um, but so my mom knew all of these things, and I was like, I just feel like the relationship was dead. I feel like I've just been like living with a roommate. And my mom was like, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's not like you're saying you're gonna settle down. And so I was on a couple different dating sites and I talked to a couple different guys, but um I started talking with my husband Zach, and then he lived about an hour away, and we started talking on a Saturday, and I was like, well, why don't you come up? Like, you want to meet at this lake and we can walk with our dogs at the lake? Because there's a loop around the lake. He's like, yeah, sure. So we're thinking one loop. That is 3 miles. We did 3 loops. We walked 9 miles. When I tell you, even our dogs didn't move the next day, and mine was a puppy. Mine was 9 months old. But we met at a park or at the lake. We walked, we talked, we laughed, and I remember leaving and thinking like, "Oh, I'm gonna be with this guy for a while." And I went to work the next day and I said to one of my very close friends at work, I said, "Dude, you'll never guess. I met the guy. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna be his wife." And he was like, "You are crazy." And I was like,
Maybe.
"Maybe." But I was like, "There's just something about this man." And a year and 5 days later, we got married. Yeah, and he's the most patient man I've ever met, and he was after that relationship that I was in, I don't wanna say damaged goods, but I was damaged goods. I was very broken, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. My self-worth was in the toilet. I did not know how to be in a healthy, loving relationship 'cause I I would apologize for trying to hold his hand because I was not allowed to hold my ex's hand.
Right.
And so if I would go to hold his hand in the car, I would immediately I would go to touch his hand and then I'd pull it back and I'd be like, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to touch you." And my husband would be like, "You don't have to be sorry. I like it when you touch me. Like, you can hold my hand." And I was like, and he's like, Why would you apologize for that?" I remember the first time he said, "Why would you apologize for that?" And I was like, I wasn't allowed. Like, I couldn't hold hands driving. I couldn't hold hands in the store. And my husband would always be like, "Hold my hand, touch me." And I'm always like, "Okay." And in the house, in the kitchen, I would be like, "I'm sorry for asking for attention. I'm sorry. You don't have to hug me. You don't have to kiss me. I'm really sorry." For the first probably 6 or 8 months, I was always apologizing for things, and he would always be like, "Stop apologizing. It's fine. I like it when you touch me. I want you to hug me, and I want you to kiss me, and it's fine. Stop apologizing." But I was just so programmed that you don't touch, you don't kiss, you don't show affection, you don't snuggle on the couch, you don't hold hands, you don't do any sort of affection, that it took a long time for me to be okay with him being okay with it, to feel like I didn't have to apologize. And the man had the most patience in the world, and he never got frustrated with it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Ah, but that was not the end of your guys' struggles.
No, then we got pregnant. And I shouldn't say that. So I will say we were very, very blessed. Two of my friends told me they were pregnant, and they were both like, "Alice, you gotta have a baby." And I was like, "We just got married, so I can make that happen." Because one thing about me, I have no judgment for women who have babies out of wedlock. But for me, based on my background and the things that happened in my childhood, I wanted to be married and know that that's the person I was going to be with forever before I had kids. And I was like, lucky for you ladies, I'm married now. So I got my IUD taken out and we got pregnant within 2, 3 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, so
That's
fast.
super fast.
Unreal. I was expecting it to take at least a year, but we got pregnant super fast and things were going great. And then in my second trimester, I was diagnosed with cholestasis of pregnancy, which has to do with your liver. And my symptoms were really itchy palms and feet, and your bile acids are elevated, which has to do with your liver. And so they're like, it's early onset. You usually don't get it until late third trimester. So I had to go to maternal fetal medicine, which was a little over an hour from my house for testing and additional monitoring. And I also had to change OBs because I was seeing a midwife. And she said she didn't feel comfortable because of the level of care I needed. And I appreciated that. I totally respected her for not taking on something that she felt like she couldn't.
Right.
So then I transferred to another hospital that was about half an hour away from our house. And I saw an OB there once. And then my cholestasis got so bad, excuse me, they were like, you need to transfer and like all of your care needs to be done at this specific hospital where maternal fetal medicine was. So I had to switch OBs again. And while I think I was 30 weeks pregnant, my OB asked me, he was great, and he was like, "What are you thinking about more kids?" And I was like, "That's a discussion for you and I to have. Like, what do you think based on the severity of the cholestasis? Um, what do you recommend?" And he's like, "Well, I do not like to tell women not to have another baby, but I would really advise that you think hard before you do it because of how severe and early it started, the likelihood of you getting it again is extremely high and it could be even worse." And I was like, okay, if I was your wife, what would you do? And he's like, if you were my wife, we would not have any more kids. And I was like, okay. And I was like so broken because we wanted 2 or 3.
Mhm.
And I remember just crying all the way home, talking to my husband, crying because um, we're having a girl, which is blessed, so blessed. But my husband is an only son, which means our last name dies with us because
Mhm.
his dad also only has a sister. So there's no other on our line of Loeschers. There is no other. Granted, I put this on myself. Nobody cared. My in-laws didn't care. My husband didn't care. But to me, I
Yes.
felt like a failure because I couldn't give him a son because we can't try again, right? Because the doctor said. Um, so that was really hard. And then a few weeks later, at 33 weeks, I went into labor and I had my daughter. So she came at 33 weeks gestation and had a 29-day NICU stay. And the NICU was, again, same hospital, a little over an hour one way from our house.
It's a long time.
Yeah, that was a lot of driving.
Um, so how talk to me about that time in the NICU. How did she do in the NICU?
So we were very blessed that she did really well. Was almost on, she never was on oxygen because I had 2 rounds of betamethasine, I think that's what it's called, injections, which is a steroid that helps with lung development in babies that they believe are going to be preterm. So I had the first round at 27 weeks, I think. I was in antepartum I had some issues on lab work, and they were concerned that they would have to take her extremely early. So they did a round of betamethasine then to help her lungs. And then I did it again a few weeks before, and I honestly can't remember why. But so we had 2 full rounds of steroids, so we knew that her lungs would be okay. Or I shouldn't say we knew, we were confident. So she really just had to learn how to eat because babies that early, their brain isn't developed on the suck, swallow, breathe routine, which is how babies eat. So she
Right.
had to learn that. So she started with a gravage tube through her nose, such as feeding tube into her stomach. And I think she was probably like 2 weeks old when we started bottle feeding. Like, we'd do a little bit in a bottle and she'd take what she could, and then the rest would go in through her feeding tube. And it was a lot. I originally thought I would stay in the hospital with her because when we went home, after I was discharged, we went home for a couple of days, and I had the worst anxiety attacks I've ever had in my life, debilitating, throwing up, shaking, hyperventilating. And so I thought I need to be with her at the hospital. So I packed a bag, and Sunday evening, my husband drove me back down and dropped me off. Hindsight, I should have driven myself, but he wanted to go see her too. And so, like, driving 2 rigs didn't really make a lot of sense, especially because his rig was a very large truck that didn't fit well in the parking garage. So he dropped me off, and my anxiety was 10 times worse. And I was throwing up and couldn't sleep. It was also during COVID, so I had to wear a mask when I was in her room, and I was sleeping in her room. So like I would cover up my head with the blanket so I could take my mask off to sleep. But
Yeah.
anytime the blanket came down, I had to put my mask on. So that didn't help. The beeping of the monitors, even in other rooms, like alarms going off, it was worse for my anxiety. So I ended up going home a couple of days. I think I stayed 2 or 3 nights. I ended up going home, and then I just drove down almost every single day. Um, I would get up, have coffee, go drive down, do two feeds, and then I would just hold her for like 4 or 5 hours, and then I would drive home. And I did that almost every single day. And then on the weekends, we would go for a full day so that my husband, we'd get up early and go and be gone all day so that my husband could have a full day with her. Um, and it was, it was really hard. And her coming home was very stressful because there were some things that we weren't told about that we found out the day we were getting discharged, which pushed off our discharge until like an evening discharge rather than a morning discharge. And I had to drive home by myself in rush hour traffic in a city very close to Seattle with my 29-day-old preemie in the back seat. And with traffic, it was over. It was like an hour and a half, almost 2 hours, and terrifying. And yeah, anyways, it was a rough day, but we made it home and we just chugged along. Can I need to heat up a bottle really fast. My son is screaming. He just woke up.
Okay, so now baby's home, everything's great,
Yeah.
and you did not follow doctor advice.
No. So around the time our daughter was 1 years old, we moved, well, not around on her first birthday. We moved to Idaho, um, which is where we now live. And we were on a drive to walk back home to Washington to visit. And I remember we were driving in my husband's truck, and I don't know why I was nervous to have the conversation because I knew he would say yes if it's what I wanted. Um, but I said, I said, I know what the doctor said, but my heart wants another baby. Like we always wanted to. I want another baby. And that started the discussion. My husband was like, I would like one too, but I also love you alive. you know, he's like, I don't want another child if it means losing you or having you have significant organ damage. And I was like, that's fair. So I got an OB out of Boise, and she was great. She is great. I love her. And she said, you know what your body did the last time, the likelihood of it happening again, pretty high. What your other OB said is valid, but if you want another baby, like, I'm not going to tell you no. And she recommended that I visit with maternal fetal medicine here in Boise before moving forward with our decision. And I said, okay. So we went and met with a doctor at maternal fetal medicine, and he said the same thing. He's like, we will monitor you as soon as your symptoms start and do what we can to make you comfortable. You just need to know that it will likely be just as bad, if not worse, than it was. And, just, we'll see you when you're pregnant. So with that, we were pretty excited. It took us 6 to 8 months to get pregnant with our son, which normal. I did not expect it to happen as quickly as it did the first time. But then we got pregnant with our son, and shortly after we got pregnant, my husband went up to Alaska on to work on a what would you call it? Like a fishing charter boat.
Oh, okay.
So it's something that he thought would be really exciting and fun, and he wanted to try it. And I said, you do you, go do it now. I'd rather him do it now and get it out of his system than wonder for the next 5 years if it's what if.
Right.
So, I think I was like 9 or 10 weeks pregnant when he left. And he was gone for 6.5 weeks, 6 or 8 weeks. And so he got to miss a lot of the sickness. Lucky me. I was home with the toddler. And that him being gone for 6 weeks was really hard. Not just because I missed my husband and best friend, but a week and a day after he left, I had to lay his dog to rest. And I say his dog, he was our family dog. He was more our daughter's dog than anything. Sweet Finley. He was 11 and a half years old, and he was a chocolate lab, and he was a big chocolate lab. A healthy weight for him was 110 pounds. So he was a big boy. And we went to the vet a couple days before Zach left, and they said, we can give him these these steroids basically that will make him comfortable for the next 6 to 8 weeks, and then to give you a little bit more time to be ready for him to go, basically. And of course, my husband wanted him to be here when he got home, so we made the decision to put him on the steroids to extend his life and keep him comfortable. It was extending and keeping him comfortable, because the minute he became uncomfortable was the minute we were going to make the choice. And I might cry. I cry every time. I don't cry about anything else other than the dogs. But he seemed better for a few days, and then Zach left, and Zach was his person. I mean, I'd been with him for quite a few years, and my daughter was his favorite person, but he had been with Zach since he was 8 weeks old.
Yeah.
And when his person left, he gave up his will to live. And
do that.
It was a Wednesday. I remember I didn't sleep all night because he couldn't breathe right. Like he had paralysis on half. And so if he laid on on one of his sides, his airway would collapse. And so you would just hear it until he would move, or you would make him move. So I didn't sleep on it. It was a Wednesday night, and I called the vet, and I was like, I don't know what to do. And they said, let's change the medicine. And so we changed the medicine. And then he didn't really improve much. Um, and then that Saturday morning, so Zach had been gone a week and a day. We woke up and it had been a rough night and he just wasn't himself. And he didn't want to be near our daughter. And that was when I was like, done.
Oh.
Like anytime, like he was glued to me, like he was at my feet. And
Uh-huh.
normally he would just like he didn't like laying on the carpet because he's a big dog and he'd get hot. He always laid on the laminate, but he was at my feet on the carpet, just miserable. And anytime our daughter would come near him, he would get up and move, which was not his norm. He was her jungle gym. And so I had to make the decision that it was time and we had to go say goodbye without my husband. He got to see him on FaceTime. And it was like, I mean, it's saying goodbye to a dog, and some people are like, it's a dog, but like
His family.
they're our family. We're the crazy dog people. And having to do that, not like without my husband, but also while pregnant and your hormones are like,
Yeah. Yeah.
with a toddler, trying to explain to her that her best friend's gone. That was a trip. And then a few weeks later, when I was 11 weeks pregnant with my son, I started getting itchy.
That's way early.
Yeah, that's first trimester early, which is very rare. And I called my OB and got the blood test done, and it took forever to get the results. And it was hard because like they can't give you the medication until it's officially diagnosed with the blood test. But for whatever reason, it took over a week to get the blood test results. And I it was a hard week and I was super, super itchy and I kept calling and they're like, we can't give you the medication until we have a diagnosis. And I was like, we know the diagnosis. Give me some damn relief. Um, so I mean, I was diagnosed with it before he came home from Alaska.
Mm.
And it so, that was an extra almost 10 weeks of cholestasis that I had the first time. And the tips and tricks that we used the first time, lidocaine spray, um, ice showers, soaking my hands and feet in ice baths. They didn't work as good the second time around.
Mm.
And like um, the team of doctors I have they're amazing. Everybody was great. Um, and but the misery was longer and it was the thing about cholestasis is it's so unpredictable. So, like, I would be incessantly itchy 24/7 for 3 days, and then it would stop. And then I wouldn't be itchy for like 12, 24, 72 hours. And then it would hit like a freaking freight train.
Mm.
And it would last for however long it was going to last. And sometimes it would just ease up. It wouldn't all the way go away, but it would be like a little more tolerable. And then it'd be really, really, really bad. And then it would ease up or like kind of dissipate. And then it would get really, really, really bad. All while trying to be a mom and a wife. And it was really it it was hard. I thought it was hard the first time around, but doing it with a toddler that doesn't understand why mommy wants to sleep all day because mommy didn't sleep all night, you know? It was difficult. And then with my son, I also got extreme vertigo. I shouldn't say, I don't know how bad vertigo gets, but I'm gonna say extreme vertigo for me, third
Mhm.
trimester, um, on top of the cholestasis. Also pause, rewind. Second trimester, I pulled the abdominal muscle that goes from here to here. I was stretching and I pulled my abdominal muscle. So I couldn't do literally anything. I could barely stand at the oven. I couldn't go, I couldn't do Costco, Winco, Walmart. I couldn't go anywhere by myself because I couldn't lift anything. Like even lifting like a small item to put it into the cart, I couldn't do it. I couldn't lift my toddler into the cart. I couldn't lift her into my truck. She had to learn to climb into the truck and climb into her car seat because I couldn't lift her. And that was so hard because she didn't understand why mommy couldn't pick her up. And, I'd wait a few weeks after feeling better, go to pick her up. It would happen again. So that happened. And then third trimester, extreme vertigo on top of the itchy. Like I remember the first night I didn't know what was going on. And I like opened my eyes and just like the whole room was like spinning. And I like threw my arms out and I was like, my husband's like, what's going on? I was like, the world is spinning. And then I had it until I gave birth at 34 weeks. And then when he was about 3 months old, it came back. And it's still here. But so that happened. And then at 29 weeks, I went into labor with him. And they were able to stop it. And I was in antepartum for a week. And then after that, I came home and I was on bed rest essentially. And then I was induced at 34 weeks to have him because that's the earliest they will induce with cholestasis. And you have to like meet all of these marks.
Mhm.
And my OB was like, I'm pushing for that. And I was like, the vibe I'm getting from them is they might not do it. And she's like, they will do it. You deserve to be done. And so between her nudging and me going into my appointments and that, what they saw, they were finally, I think 2 days before I got induced, they were like, yes, you can induce her. And so then I got induced, and a week a week before we got induced, we hard launched our business because we make great life choices.
And so now here you are.
Yes, here we are, a mom of two. Um, I think our son was about 2 months old. He had a NICU stay as well. He was in the NICU for 2 weeks. Um, but I think he was 2 months old when I started like working on helping my husband with things. Because he was struggling. And it's not because he's not capable. My husband has just never done office work. So he, bookkeeping, scheduling, bidding was hard because he wasn't used to that sort of thing. And all of the little things that go into it, you know, and how to properly format an estimate. You can't just put like drywall and put a number without, that drywall includes the mud, the tape, the texturing, all of that is included in the drywall, but you have to put it so that the customer knows that they're getting all of those things because they don't know that that's what you mean when you say drywall, for example. So, when our son was 2 months old, I stepped in and started taking over some things, and now I do everything other than labor. And sometimes I still have to help with physical labor, but I don't complain. I like working in the field with my husband.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. I have to say it's one of the things that I miss about with my ex-husband when we were married is that we built two houses and we remodeled two houses and it was fun.
Yeah. We, before we moved to Idaho, we renovated our home ourselves. And I loved it because I love design. I love picking finishes, seeing how it all comes together, actually doing the work. We work, like I said, really well together. We've done quite a few projects together. So I enjoyed it, and we enjoy running the business together now.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
So now things are great and,
Yes.
but looking back, what is the one thing you would say for somebody who is in your position that they've realized that the relationship they are in is not healthy?
Yeah.
And they're thinking maybe it's time. What would you want to say to that woman?
I would want them to know that it gets better. It might get harder before it gets better, but you deserve a life that you're happy with. You deserve to have someone who loves you and values you, and there are men like that out there. And you just you need to give yourself the advice that you would give your friend in the same situation. You need to set up a plan and you need to lead. And it's not as easy for everybody. I know that, if you have kids with the person, there's some legalities there, right? Um, if you own a home with that person, if you're married to that person, like there are certain things where like it's not always as easy as what I did, where I just packed up and left while he was at work because that for my safety and that was the easiest way to get out. Um, but make a plan and don't back out of your plan. It gets better. Um, you deserve happiness no matter what you have been programmed to believe. You deserve happiness and you deserve someone who loves you.
Yes, yes, you do. And I just really, really love what you say about, what you would say to yourself, what you would say to your friend, because we are always so much harder on ourselves than we are of the people we love around us. And
Yeah,
and we're supposed to love ourselves as much as we love the people around us.
yeah. And it's always so easy to give the advice, but to take your own advice is it shouldn't be hard, but it is so hard. And yeah, just do what's best for you. And they another thing that I had to accept is it's okay for them to tell their own narrative. I know that this man tells people that he kicked me out. He tells people that he broke up with me. I know people have told me, that he said that he kicked me out, that he ended things because I was such a horrible girlfriend. Um, and they're like, which is wild because like you're great. I'm like, thanks. That's not what happened. They're like, we know, but this is what he says. He kicked me out. He ended things. It's his narrative. I was a bad girlfriend. He was not the problem. And it took me a while to be okay with that because I know the truth. I know how horrible he was. I know what he put me through. Um, to be fair, I also said I was not nice to him. For the longest time, I was his punching bag. But I would say in the last year, I started like not physically, but verbally fighting back. I would throw punches back verbally. I was not the best, but I did that. But I did leave. Um, and I've accepted that he has his own narrative, and that's fine because the people who matter to me know the truth of the situation,
That's right.
and that's all that matters. You know, he can tell his current partner whatever he wants. He
Yep.
can tell his friends what I mean. His friends know the truth. His friends have had me over. They know what happened. Like he can tell people whatever he wants to make himself feel good. Um, narcissism and people being a narcissist is something that is thrown around a lot these days. And there are a lot of people who aren't really narcissists. They're just fucked up in the head and they just need a reality check. Um, he is a narcissist. And he will make himself look the best that he can, and that's fine.
That's what they do.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's okay.
Had to,
I think
had
you're
to, had to
showing.
make sure he was all right. Um, and being accepting that and knowing that like they're gonna say what they want to say. You can't let yourself get wrapped up in that after you leave.
That's
Because
right.
if you let your mind and your energy go into that, you're going to do yourself harm. Like, I don't mean physical harm, but like mentally, you're going to hurt yourself. Emotionally, you're going to be drained. And if you are in a better relationship, you are going to do damage to that relationship by dwelling on that because it doesn't matter.
That's
You
right.
know, let them say what they're going to say, let them do what they're going to do, make a fool out of themselves. Their true colors will come to light later. That's not your problem.
That's right.
You removed yourself, you got yourself safe, you did what's best for you. Let them say whatever they want to say. Doesn't matter.
Matter. Exactly. Okay, so your business,
Yes.
Squared Away Home Improvements.
Yes, ma'am.
That sounds very fascinating, a subscription-based home maintenance service for homeowners. How is that doing?
So we just launched it. So sorry, he is very chatty. So I for a few months worked on, crunching the numbers to make sure it was feasible and what services to offer, what not to offer, what would be appeasing to homeowners. And so it's a three-tiered program. We have Essentials, Premium, and VIP, different levels of care. Essentials is basically, I won't go into all the details, but Essentials is like the base. You get like the minimal um, services. Premium, middle, you get a little bit more. VIP, you get an extensive amount of services. With every tier, you get a discount in our hourly rate on projects and repairs that are outside of our um, subscription service. So, like if you wanted a small room remodeled, you would get a discount on labor for that.
Okay.
Sorry, one second.
Uh, okay, so now we have another person joining us.
Yeah, we have little Remy joining the podcast.
He's adorable. I've got no problem with that. I am one of those people that when there's a baby crying in a restaurant, I'm smiling. I'm not mad.
Yeah, I love that. I wish there were more people like that.
I love having kids around. All of mine are grown and flown, and I've got 3 grandkids that are far away, so I'd love to have them nearby. I don't care when they're crabby or whatever they're doing. Okay, so
Feel that.
let people know who are interested in your services. Where do they find you?
You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Squared Away Home Improvements, or you can look at our website, squaredawayhomeimprovements.com.
Awesome. Wonderful. Okay, everybody, that's it for this episode. This is the Humor and Chaos podcast. If you or anyone you know would be a great guest, you can email me at humoringchaos@gmail.com, or you can find me at my website, www.humoringchaos.com. Thank you so much, Alice. Your story will be very impactful and it will help somebody who's looking to make a major change like you did, looking for that reason to take that courageous step. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you for having me as a guest.